Okay, so part two of this however many part series, because I have no idea, but based on a little bit of a review, kind of thinking about things, I think this might be five, but we'll actually see when the time comes. So part one left off in with me finishing the first big tune that with the first like big build, if you want to call it that, with the bolt-ons that I did with the I'll call it the Blouch 1.5 XTR build. So, leaving off with 362 of the wheels is not too bad. And then with that, since that was in July, kind of did my, I guess you could call it apprenticeship or something like that, whatever, just to get just to get a job and some pay coming in. I worked at my college in my ROTC program and, did a little bit of recruiting and whatnot. But, so yeah, I was there basically with the car. I just put it around from July until December. I want to say it was December 20th or December 23rd. I forget which one that the job terminated. And then after the holiday, went off to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And I also believe it was the day after Christmas that I left for Oklahoma. But anyway, left off there and arrived in Oklahoma and kind of put the car around. But one of the little tiny upgrades that I did was a catback exhaust, which to this day is still on the car. I do have the Gymkhana exhaust that I want to do, but I just haven't gotten around to it, and that's more just going to be kind of the putt around, fool around on the street kind of thing. Not unless unless tracks allow it, in which case I'll use it on track too, because I think the Gymkhana exhaust would be a cool thing to have on there. And then let me look it up here really quick. Trying to match up my timeline, because the reason why this part two is going to be short is because all it's covering is basically from January of 2015 to November of 2015. That was my entire stint, but there is as we'll get to, there is a significant thing that happened that kind of, it escalated things. Things escalated rather quickly, if you want to say that. So after the exhaust in February, in April, so I had the Perrin front mount intercooler core, which not a bad choice by any means. Like, go for it if you want to. I just personally was not a fan of it, mostly because of the routing and the hot side and basically the turbo outlet and the intake inlet, if you want to call it that, cross paths. So the Perrin intercooler kit wrapped around clockwise, and the outlet of the turbo that pipe met with the pipe that was the inlet to the intake manifold, and there was signs of those two bumping together, and I didn't really like that. And then also I was just doing a lot more research because I was being still young and dumb, but with a lot more money, and ended up finding out about ETS, Extreme Turbo Systems, and I bought their front mount intercooler kit just as an interim. So with the Perrin kit, it would have required me to find a fabricator and get some custom work done and blah blah blah, and I didn't exactly have the time for that while I was in Oklahoma, because it was more just I was there for school, but school was a full-time job, and so I didn't really have the time for that. So what I did was found out about ETS, which just so happened to be like a couple of hours away from my parents' house. So I wish I had known about them when I lived in Washington, but I did not. And I bought their intercooler kit. It wrapped around counterclockwise, so the turbo outlet and the intake inlet did not bump into each other. So there was a neater path and a little bit shorter piping, and I just thought the ETS logo looked a lot more aggressive in the front bumper, so went with that. And cruised around with that for a while. So that was my bad. Get my timeline straight here. So that was the beginning of April that I switched over to the ETS front mount, and things were good for about 4 months, and then, or not four, gosh dang, well yeah, 3 to 4. But based on the properties of the photo that I'm looking at and we'll share, I rolled around for 2 months or so. Let's see here. So mid-April, May, June, July. So yeah, 2.5, 3 months. And then, well, bam, I pulled the trigger on the ETS rotated turbo kit. It actually I ordered it a while beforehand, but they are made to order from what I understand, which is pretty cool. The only bad thing about that is their workload is actually pretty big, and if you all know ETS, obviously Subaru is not the only thing they work on, and they are well known throughout the automotive industry. So they had GTRs and all sorts of craziness. So the kit took a while to get built, but I ended up getting it, and I went with the smallest turbo that they had, that they offered with the kit, which happened to be the Precision 5858, and I got the 0.63 back housing because I didn't want to make too much power, so I kind of wanted to choke it out a little bit, but have a good enough response as if the engine could put out anything anyway. Now, do want to disclose too that I was still on the stock engine, and at this time I was somewhere in the 90,000 mile range. I don't know where I was, but yeah, I ended up strapping that on. So that was, I said, mid-July. And then here's all the photos of it, and then here's it installed. And let's see, got it installed. So the kit arrived probably around the 15th of July, and I knew a group. I was in Lawton, Oklahoma, but the main party of the group was all the way up in OKC, which is about an hour and a half away. But thankfully, I had a couple of good friends from that group that also lived in Lawton, that were permanent parties, so they were stationed there for a lot longer than I was. And one had a house, so he was gracious enough to let me borrow his driveway. And crazy enough, because no project that I've done on the car probably since then have I been able to do in one go. There's always been some sort of interruption that sends me to AutoZone or Home Depot or something. But the rotated turbo kit was plug and play, easy as could be. ETS just made the kit properly, and they had the whole jig set up, so it went in there. And July 19th is when it was installed. And I forget whether I had to have had a bass tune, because it definitely couldn't run the same on the Stage 2 tune. Blouch Dominator 1.5 and 5858 are pretty massively different turbos. So I either parked it or had a bass tune, I forget which. But eventually, I'm trying to get my timeline, like I said, straightened up here. So September, so somewhere between July 19th and September 4th of 2015, we went out for a tuning session. And he's still a big tuner out there, good tuner too. None of this is his fault, obviously. I take all blame. But Ben West is who tuned the car, and we were up doing a street tune. I don't remember where I was, but back roads and whatnot, so that we were all safe. But we had essentially finished the tune, and I got asked if I wanted to do one, call it quits, or do one more just to see that all the parameters were shaken out the way that he wanted them to. And I said, you know what, just to be safe, let's go ahead and do it one more time. Well, I think it was probably a good thing it happened at that time, but also kind of sucked at the same time. But imagine if I had made it all the way home and that's when it had happened. So on that last pull, in the middle of it, the car shut off and the Christmas tree lights came up on the dash, and it was just the weirdest feeling because there was no real loud noise. It was just the car lost all power, just like kind of like went on its face, fell on its face in the middle of the pool. Pulled over, obviously, trying to start it, wouldn't do anything. Couldn't notice anything from under the hood or down on the ground and checking underneath. Couldn't notice anything, so we didn't know what the heck was going on. So had it towed back to my apartment that night. And also, so the part that I forgot, and if I can find photos of it, I'll show. But when I bought the turbo kit, I think it was either I was smart enough to think it, or it was whatever. I actually bought a truck. So my first truck was I forget what year, 2004. Yeah, it was a 2004 Chevy Silverado 1500. That ended up being the daily. So the Subaru was a daily from 2010 till early 2015. Bought the truck became the new daily, and then I just fooled around with the Subaru. So thankfully I had the truck. I got the Subaru towed home. Subaru just kind of sat around for a little bit, and there's a shop there. And sometime between July 19th and September 4th of 2015, I knew the guy, Sean Betty. He's actually, pretty renowned on the internet, or at least YouTube. He has a shop up in OKC known as Misfire Motorsports. I think it was like at its beginning at that point, but still had a massive clientele list, and lots of people knew him, and he was the renowned person for Subaru at that time, and he had a lot of good partnerships. So he was kind of like the one-stop shop. So when I blew the car up, the tuner and him knowing each other, Ben West knowing Sean pretty well, I was able to have my car stored up at Misfire Motorsports shop, in the hopes that maybe it might be able to be looked at. But it was September, and I forget whether I had my orders or not, but I knew I was coming up on, I knew that the second time I went through the course was coming to an end, so I knew I was going to be PCSing soon enough. So I dropped it off there just in the off chance that he might be able to look at it. But with the growing business and people having plans and all that stuff and ready to get their car worked on, they were front loaded, and mine was just kind of there just because I wanted to see if he could figure out what the heck had happened. So that's what that was. Kept the car there, but unfortunately, it came time to PCS, and I went to go pick up the car at the beginning of October. So it sat there for about a month, maybe a month or two. I can't remember. I know I blew it up. I can't remember when I blew the car up. So it might have sat there from August until August through whatever. So let's see here. My bad yet again. Might have sat there, yeah, end of July all the way through October. But regardless, at the beginning of November, car was put onto a trailer, or at the end of October, so Halloween. I had the car on a trailer and was well on my way to El Paso, which wasn't a far drive, but far enough. And then I ended up getting a house after being there for a couple of days on November 8th, at least. November 8th is the first photo I have of the car sitting in the garage, and that's when the teardown started. So, not a whole lot of time coverage in this. Only about just over 10 months, because we were at the beginning of November. So from January to the end of October, got the new ETS, or got the new exhaust, switched from the Perrin front mount to the ETS front mount. Took out the Blouch Dominator setup and switched over to the ETS 5858 rotated turbo kit. Blew the car up and had it stored at Misfire Motorsports for a little while. Picked it up and then towed the car to El Paso. And El Paso is where I will say the fun began. So yeah, there's that 10-month period, but 2016 is where the fun all really started. So until next time, y'all, stay driven.